I wish I was joining you for a more uplifting session, though. I mean, we're talking about global risks, and this is pretty sobering reading, but it's important. You know, the opinions, the collective opinions of 900 experts of the WEF are not to be taken lightly. So we have, thankfully, a very interesting panel to help us make sense of this and to, I hope, not just assess the risks, but to give us a sense of what we might do to mitigate them. And now I'm going to introduce them, not, Mr. Vice President, in protocol terms, but I'm going to go because it's good for the pictures from the right to the left. Gillian Tett, Provost of King's College, University of Cambridge, columnist at the Financial Times. Thank you for joining us. Next to her, John Doyle, President, Chief Executive Officer of Marsh McLennan. Thank you. Martina Chung, President and CEO of S&P Global. Thank you for joining us. And last but absolutely not least, Kashim Shettima, the Vice President of Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President, for joining us. I'm going to start with you. I introduced you last, but I'm going to turn to you first.
Thank you.
The biggest risk in the short term, as you heard, state-based armed conflict. I'd like to ask you about how you see that risk from two perspectives. Firstly, on the African continent, because it strikes me that in terms of lives lost, the place where state-based armed conflict is currently having the biggest impact is actually on your continent. And we talk about awful, awful wars in other parts of the world much more, but in your continent, it's a really, really big challenge. So if you could start there, but then broaden your lens and tell me how much you as a leader of your country worry about a world where 900 of the world's movers and shakers say that state-based armed conflict is the biggest risk.
Thank you so much. The worst cause that the Chinese may wish for you is for you to live in interesting times. And indeed, globally, we are living in interesting times. Armed conflicts, from the crisis in Ukraine, the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, to the war, the unfortunate war in Sudan, has further compounded our misery as a people. That disrupted supply chains, exacerbated our humanitarian challenges, and threatened global peace. And as John Donne said, every man's death diminishes me. So never send to know the hope the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. So I believe the armed conflicts in Africa is further compounding our challenges for development. There is an incestuous relationship between economy and ecology in the African continent. Sudan, which used to be a standard bearer for peace and development in West Africa, in Central Africa, and in all of Africa, has become a basket case. But I believe hope springs eternal from the hearts of men. We believe that collectively, as members of the same human family, we can find solutions to our challenges. Armed conflicts goes beyond state-based conflicts. In the Sahelian region, for instance, where I hail from, Boko Haram and ISWAP are wreaking a lot of havoc. In my nation, between the year 2020 to 2024, we're harvesting 5,000 deaths annually, fatalities from insurgency and banditry. Yes, the figures have started declining by about 43%, but then let's not talk about the numbers. As Dele Giwa, one of Nigeria's foremost journalists, said, one life lost in pogrom is as gruesome as millions lost in that process. So we believe concerted efforts need to be done, but hope springs eternal from the hearts of men and women. But in the Sahelian region, some of the states are almost failed states. Niger is imploding. Burkina Faso is a basket case. Mali, nothing good comes out of it. Unfortunately, we have some very intransigent juntas in those regions that are impervious to human reason. But I believe nations across the African region, we have domino nations. Nigeria, with 250 million people, has a very pivotal role to play. In the North African region, you can look at Egypt, for instance. It can be a source of stability. In the Horn of Africa, with all the conflicts between Somalia and Ethiopia, Ethiopia can be a force for good. In the Southern African region, South Africa can be a force for stability. But we must look inwardly for our challenges, and multilateralism is key. As I said, these challenges are global, and we need to fuse into one common human family to address them.
So it's interesting, I mean, when you lay them out, it is again a powerful reminder of just how many conflicts, both state-based and, you use the word basket case, I'm not going to, but states that are imploding into conflict. Two questions. One, how much worse can things get? And two, when you talk about multilateralism, what multilateral institutions, organizations are you looking for to help turn this around?
When it comes to multilateralism, I'm referring to organizations like the United Nations Organization, even the World Economic Forum, and all agencies for the good of humanity should fuse into one and find solutions. But honestly, I am an eternal optimist, but the case in nations like Niger, which even in the best of times, were always facing existential threats, is very, very terrible. But efforts are ongoing. Two different platforms like the ECOWAS, like the multinational joint task forces, to come up with robust solutions to the challenges facing us. But most importantly, my own perspective is that we should have a holistic approach. Beneath the mayhem of Boko Haram, underneath the nihilism of ISWAP, lies the real cause, which is extreme poverty. Once we adopt a kinetic and non-kinetic solution to the challenges, unless we want to engage in an endless war of attrition, military solution cannot solve our problems. We have to combine it. Gender empowerment initiatives, investments in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure. Once we create hope for the youth, once we create hope for a better tomorrow, this insanity, this madness will evaporate. Because we are a very young continent. Do you know the average age of the Nigerian nation? Is 16.9.
16, yeah.
So the anticipated demographic bolt, and nations like Nigeria, by 2050, we are supposed to surpass the United States, will be the third most populous nation on earth. Our population will hit 440 million. And this anticipated demographic bulge, we have the window of transforming them into demographic dividends, or there will be the demographic disaster that will consume all of us. I met some Western diplomats some few months back in Abuja. We were chatting, and on a lighter note, I told them, look, just 2 million Syrians knocking on the doors of Europe, they caused Brexit. They led to the emergence of problems across the Atlantic. I said, what do you say about 50 million cocky Nigerians? They will not cross through Libya, no. They will cross through Morocco. They will invade Europe. English-speaking, cocky, swashbuckling Nigerians. You know, so what, I know that...
We might welcome that. I don't know, cocky, swashbuckling Nigerians.
But there is hope for a greater tomorrow. The world is acutely aware of the challenges we are facing, and the world is ready to rise to the occasion. But there was one famous quote attributed to Warren Buffett, whereby he said, don't chase the butterflies. Fix your garden, and the butterflies will come to you. To me, Africa has the resources, has the intellect. We miss the agricultural age. We miss the industrial age. We are now in the knowledge-driven post-industrial age. And I believe digital savvy Africans are in a unique position to drive change in the African continent. And it might interest you, Korn Ferry, a global consultancy outfit, said that by 2035, there will be 65 million global talent deficits. The United States, Brazil, and Russia will pay $6 million talent deficit. And we are in a unique position to fill this gap.
Well, that's, I think, an appropriate optimism to end after your sobering beginning. But you're right. Africa is the opportunity of, you know, beyond the West's short, medium, but in the long term, this is really where it's at. This is going to define, in a lot of ways, where the world goes.
The upside of the Trump presidency is that people are not willing to give to him. People see him as irrational, as erratic, but this is an image he has deliberately created for negotiation purposes. He's much more brilliant than we are willing to give him. Yes, he's transactional, but he has street credibility, such that the peace in the Middle East, the ceasefire in Gaza, might not be unconnected with the influence of Trump. And Trump being a transactional leader, I don't think if he's obsessed with global dominance. So it's my fervent hope and belief that in the coming months he will find a solution, or will get a solution to the crisis, even in Ukraine, because of his strict credibility, and because he often calls a spade not by any other thing but his name. I believe that there are the positive sides of all negativities, and the world will be ushered into an era of some stable peace, especially even the Iranian question. He will bluff, he will shout, but at the end of the day, it's just a negotiation tactics. That's my own take on him. He's much more brilliant than we are willing to give him.
Thank you. Next question. You, because, and keep it not too extensive, because there are so many opportunities in Africa, but just give us the sense of why, despite the risks that you've spoken of, there is also a profound sense of opportunity, and I'd like the three of you to do it too.
Okay. Well, the word for crisis in the Chinese language is wei des. Wei stands for danger and des for opportunity. Yes, we have challenges, but those challenges are also pregnant with opportunities to re-engineer our society and build back better. The crisis has given us a unique opportunity, a unique window to invest on the people, especially on education, on gender empowerment initiatives, on smart agriculture, and leapfrog our economies into the fourth industrial revolution. I don't believe in aids. I believe in partnership. I would rather carry my poverty with dignity and deal with people and nations and companies on a pedestal of equality, not a master-servant relationship. I don't come with a begging bowl. My continent is the richest in the world. And the trajectory of global growth is facing Africa. And Nigeria will make or mar that transition. So I move in with confidence, with cautious optimism, with hope for a better tomorrow. But most importantly, I believe that the youth of Africa are the drivers of change in Africa.
Yeah, Africa will, you will need to drive that change yourselves.
Certainly.
Absolutely, in a more fragmented world. Martina.